Okay, as are the questions I've got. We've got a full stack of those, but I thought just to start with, we should give Les Linklater, who heads the Step Change organisation up in the UK, to say a few words and just a few moments reflection on what you've heard to date, Les, and any comments you've got.
Yes, thanks, Malcolm. I guess the first comment is really, if we ever needed proof that adding safety reps to the Step Change leadership team was a good idea, Willie has absolutely just hit that out of the park this morning. So I'm hugely proud that we've got workforce representation on the leadership team. I think secondly, the fact that the transparency, the openness of how people have spoken today, the achievements of 15 years, but also the fact that there's still more to do, is a sort of indication of the commitment that we have in terms of the importance of step change within the industry. And also the strong message that collaboration is absolutely the way forward. We each have to play our part. There is no universal truth. We have multiple cultures, both regional, national, and actually corporate cultures that we have to play with in this basin. And that's a challenge, particularly when we look at things like process safety and how that might play out here. But communication is always going to be the difficult thing. How do we make step change real in the organisations? And we have to take that away and feed that into our planning session in October. So hugely, hugely positive, but actually even more encouraged that there's still more to do, and we have some people wanting to do it.
Great stuff, thanks. These are in no particular order. There are a couple, though, that start, I think, on the question of data. I'll read them both out. UK is fourth quartile in the HSE performance leagues. Is this true for all operators? Is it true for all types of installations? Is it true for all ages of installations? Are the types of incidents recorded in the UKCS the same as other types seen elsewhere around the world? The answers may illustrate that the UK is not really so bad, or may highlight the poor sectors that need urgent focus. So there's a sort of reflection there. It's a bit, what are these statistics? How reliable are they? And there's another one here, and I've lost it now. There was another one on a very similar line. Yes, UK and Europe shown as the worst countries. However, can we be confident that the data gathered from the UK and other countries is accurate? Is there a possibility of underreporting? Could it be confirmed that the bar chart is only for the oil and gas industry? Ken, I'm going to start with you on that.
Thank you. Yeah, certainly something that, as I mentioned when I said a few words, causes quite some debate in the leadership team and in a number of other forums. I've spoken with the safety reps for and others around this. So I guess I can talk from my own personal experience, having worked on 5 continents with Shell, and also the experience of the other leadership team members when we discuss this. And maybe add the visit I just had to Nigeria that I touched on. So let me start with that first. So my experience, having spent 2 weeks in the field looking at Nigerian operations, and they have a safety performance that's superior to the average of the UK, which is what this is about. So I think it's important to say that within the UK, as Martin showed, there's an enormous range within our activities in terms of personal safety performance, but what you saw was the average of the UK versus the average of the other regions. If I looked at the sorts of things that I saw, and I'll give you 1 or 2 examples. I went to a terminal operation, and before I even got to step in the terminal, I had a 10-minute medical carried out by the doctor who was on site. So I had my blood pressure taken, I had my heart rate taken, I had a sit-down and a discussion about any particular issues I had. Now, that level of screening I've never seen on a site visit I've done before. If I looked at their journey management procedures, they were way in excess of anything that I do in my asset here. And if I look at their focus of just doing what it says in the tin and doing it day in, day out, it brings a consistency of performance and also a brother's keeper culture that I don't see to the same extent in my own asset. So certainly personal reflections for what I've seen. I've worked a lot in Asia where, again, a quite different culture to maybe a bit more compliance. 70% of the injurious incidents in the UK are due to non-compliance with procedures. We have that data from the HSE. So there's a bit more compliance, but there's also more a culture of brother's keeper. So I believe genuinely that the reporting systems, and part of my review was to look at the reporting systems in Nigeria, are the same in other countries. And quite frankly, we do suffer from more a higher injury rate here in the UK, and you can all put your own interpretation on what those factors are, and there's not time to debate that here. But there are certainly things around culture, approach, and maybe also the need and desire for employment, and therefore how much sense there is to carry on with the job when there may be a little bit of a twinge. And well, you can say that's a reporting issue, but it's also about a mindset issue as well. So that's my perspective on that.
Thanks, Ken. There was a second twinge over, just hold you for a second. One of the questions was saying, could we be sort of richer in this data too? I mean, are we a bit sort of broad brush in this presentation? Should we be looking at the type of asset, the age of asset, or whatever?
So that data is available, and I think Martin reflected on some of that as well. So there is an enormous range, and maybe that's an opportunity for Step Change to present that data in a different way so we can understand who's doing really well, who's not doing so well, and why that is. Many of you have got operations of your own, are involved in operations, and you'll know that year in, year out, you maybe get that inconsistency as well. But indeed, bringing that transparency is certainly something we can take away and see if we can improve that. But in terms of regional comparisons, I personally believe that they are a pretty fair reflection of reality.
Okay, thanks. This is an important question. Let's come along the two. Martin, your reflections?
Yeah, I think as to the reporting and under-reporting, I think when I look at our statistics and our global operations, I don't think reporting is a significant part of it either. I think if we look at root causes, I think there are a lot of root causes, or the same few root causes that we see certainly across the industry here in the UK, but I think also globally. So I think we are still, though the statistics might be different, I think we're still facing the same challenges also globally. We did touch about the spreads in the UK data, and there is a huge spread, and I think we have very, very different approaches, and there's still a lot that we can learn from each other by sharing, which is where Step Change comes in. So for instance, small things, a small example is once you get onto the installation, who's the first guy that you meet? Is it the OIM inviting you in, giving you a briefing about the incidents, what has happened on the platform, and now welcome to his installation, and this is the way we do things around here, or how? So I think it starts at very, very basic levels of how do we approach the culture in your installations. And I think there's a lot we can share that. So I think in terms of Step Change, those are some of the things certainly that I'm looking for Step Change to say, what are the best practices? Who are the best performers out there? And I did show some statistics that are anonymous, but we do share those, right? So it's about openness and transparency, so we can get together, sit in the room and say, so who are the outliers? Who are the best performers? Who are the top quartile? And what is it that we can learn from them across the industry?
Thanks very much. Willie, reflections from you on this?
Well, I just think if you're not open and honest in your reporting, then you'll never know where you're going wrong. And eventually it'll just bite you in the arse. Be blunt.
Thank you very much. Well done. Les, any final thought from you? Anything to add?
I think when you go behind the data, we can see in Europe that actually we're pretty much as good as our peers within Europe. You know, if you look at Norway, if you look at the Netherlands or similar sectors, you know, we are almost exactly the same in terms of safety performance. But ultimately, the numbers are less important than what the graph says. The graph actually just says there's more to do, there's more to play for. And we can sit and hide behind the excuse that, you know, let's say the former Soviet Union don't report as well as we do. But actually, it probably doesn't matter at the end of the day. It might matter when you've got a goal of being the safest place in the world, but we are about continuous improvement. We're about driving change and striving for that. So, you know, data's data, but actually safety improvement's what we're playing for.
Thanks very much. I'm going to come back to you for this next question, which I guess is sort of a yes or no, but I think you'll see the theme behind it. Are there any communication professionals in the Step Change in Safety leadership team? And I guess the question is then, and if not, shouldn't there be?
Okay, well, I can answer that there are lots of communication amateurs in the Step Change leadership team, but we have, as part of being part of Oil and Gas UK, we actually have access to a full communications team who are there to support us. So the value of being part of that bigger organisation gives us access to external affairs, comms professionals, and actually people with journalistic backgrounds who can actually help us with that comms and get it out there. And that's been a huge, huge bonus for Step Change this year. And we continue to use that resource to improve the visibility of Step Change.
Thanks, Les. Martin, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, maybe just a short comment. I think we all have an obligation there as well. So it's not only step change and the professional part of step change in the communications. If we look at all the members, and we can discuss how many there should be, but right now they're around 100. I think we all have a very strong role in communicating what step change is about. And that's certainly a thing we can take much further than what we're doing right now.
Fine, thanks. I'll move on to the next question. There are quite a lot of questions here. If we don't get through all of these, with good luck we will. If we don't get through all of these, we'll post the questions and the answers. Les has agreed he'll do that on the Step Change website, and we'll put it on our website too as well. Question. The best workforce engagement happens face-to-face on site. Visibility offshore is essential. What's the panel's view of contractors getting highly restricted access to site for HSE workforce engagement? So, face-to-face important. What's the threats? Are there threats there from restricted access for HSE engagement? Les, do you want to lead on that? I think I'm going to ask everybody their thoughts on this.
I think it's absolutely essential that in a mature basin where you've got, let's say, client-contractor relationships, so actually the contractors have as much site access to their teams as the clients and operators do. You can't engage a workforce from onshore. I mean, you can comms, you can Twitter, you can Facebook, but ultimately that direct feedback, that sitting down and listening, can only come from face-to-face. You can do lots at heliports and bring them in for town halls, but actually, if we want an engaged workforce, we need to go and meet them where they are and actually make sure we have access to that. So it's absolutely about the operators giving their contracting population access to their senior management teams.
Very good. Willie?
Yeah, I just see contractors in the workforce, well, core crew as one, we're all in the same.
Yeah.
We all turn the same machines, so, we're all equal on that side. It's just the individuals that perceive it differently that cause the disruption. So,
right.
We're all equal on that side.
Thanks. Martin?
Yeah, I would echo that. I think certainly we're one team offshore, and it doesn't matter what coverall you're wearing, whether it's Maersk or Petrofac or what it is. It's one team when we talk safety and performance. And I think we need to be open, as I said in my presentation as well, we need to be open about our performance because there's a lot of energy out there with the workforce. And we shouldn't believe that things can be solved in the office in any way, but we cannot get the right focus if we are not open about what our real challenges are.
Yeah,
so
just fooling ourselves.
Is a key part.
Thanks. Ken, any final word from you on this?
Yeah, so the theme of this presentations today was around collaboration. We collaborated Step Change leadership team, contractors, company representatives, unions, 971 reps. I think the same in our offshore, echo what the guys are saying. We shouldn't be seeing a differentiation. Certainly in my own asset, we talk about one team. As Martin's mentioned, together we succeed. There are challenges in some of our platforms getting people out there and particularly staying overnight, so I'm not going to say that's not an issue. And I think some of the things that we have seen that have helped in that regard, so a couple of our contractors, Woodgroup, PSN, Maersk, actually do things at the heliports. So they go out and meet the guys before they go offshore. I think that's been very valuable. We have onshore safety reps meetings, which I think has been very valuable in trying to raise the profile. And also we have weekly safety calls where we have safety reps calling in from offshore together with the platform supervision. So I think there's a number of things you can do to enhance what's already in place, but offshore visits are a core part of what we should do. It's part of boots on for safety, and we must make sure we get people out there, whether they're staff or contractors.
Thanks very much, Ken. This next question, the question directed it at Martin, but I'm actually going to ask Martin and Willie to give the sort of response on this. We'll come to you first, Martin, then Willie. What do we need to do to get safety reps engaged? Martin, first. What do we need to do to get safety reps engaged, truly engaged?
Broad question. I think it comes in many areas and factors. First of all, it's about, I think, the profile and the roles and being clear about expectations. So what is the safety rep role? And it's fine we talk about regulations and what should be in the role there, but how do we want to promote it in the company? And how do we make it more visible in the company? There's a lot of knowledge sitting with the safety reps. There's a lot of what we say, information flowing to the safety reps that the supervisors will never know about, and different conversations that can be had. So I think what it takes on my part is, again, communication. So let's ensure that the safety reps are informed about what's happening in the company, informed about the decisions that are being made, such that we can ensure feedback is coming back to the guys on the installation. And then I think it's simple things as when we have safety reps in the office, etc., that I take time out and have lunch with the safety reps or meet with them in the morning or whatever, and have a conversation and a discussion about where we are as a company. Because we want to have that, we want to remove barriers and have a transparent and open discussion about the challenges we have. That would be my take.
Thanks very much, Martin. So, Willie, as a safety rep, what does it take to get safety reps engaged?
I just think you need to let people have their own swing on things. You know, a lot of corporate things that are pushed forward to get fed to the workforce are a bit tiresome. So you need to change it, sex it up a bit. You know, make it more digestible for the guys and girls.
Yeah.
And yeah, just get that aspect from another work colleague.
Yeah,
Contractors as well. Contractors are, you know, they moving about platforms is so important. In our companies, we should grasp that, the learnings from contractors moving about, because they see good things and bad things in different, and we can learn so much from that. So.
There's another question here which I now see is I think it's very closely related. We'll go through the panel on this one if we might, and it's closely related. How do you make safety personal? And how do you create the vision that we're all safety professionals? Les?
I think the short answer is that I don't know how we make everybody safety professionals. I would rather have everybody truly committed to safety as part of their DNA, and I don't think you need let's say, a professional accreditation or certificate for that. I think we have enough certificates on walls. We just lack commitment to use what the words on the certificates. In terms of making it personal, I think that's about sharing stories. I think that's about telling people what it feels like when it goes well, and actually what it feels like when it doesn't go so well, and you know, being that truly open about that. So you have to tell people that there is a lot to play for, and we all know the horror stories, but actually it's sometimes good just to remember those things.
Thanks. Martin, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. I think a lot of it is, as I touched upon as well, going from building relations. So trying know people, know understanding, have a personal relationship with colleagues, etc. Because that does make it easier to intervene, to have conversations, etc. If you know people well. So I think it's about building relations, and then I think it's also about going from sort of the more understand what are our real drivers. So when we have an incident, if we have an issue, instead of just addressing the issue itself or intervene on the issue, then let's try to dig deeper and understand, so what was the reason that person made that call, right? If we don't hold the handrail or whatever our policies are, etc., instead of just addressing that, then let's try to understand, so why do we make the choices and why do we make the decisions that we do? I think that's the next step.
Thanks. Willie, safety seems pretty personal for me to you. I mean, I think that's right, isn't it? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's, my key thing is safety is not a science, right? It's one of our most natural instincts, is to look after one another. Doesn't matter how many pie charts or graphs you throw in front of people. So it shouldn't be robotic. It is a natural instinct. So just let's not overcomplicate it. Thanks
very much. Ken, last thought from you.
Yeah, a couple of things, I guess, for me. One is to indeed make it very personal by being personally involved. I think it was already mentioned by Les about telling stories. So I think for me, I've got a whole rich material after being away for a couple of weeks in Nigeria, and I intend to use that in all discussions that we have day to day, and I've been in 3 or 4 events where I've already done that. I think the one other thing that I do that was actually not triggered by me but someone else, a predecessor, was that when we have an injury, and fortunately we haven't had too many this year in my particular asset, not just do you have the investigation, but I always have a discussion with 3 or 4 people who are involved in it about how they feel about it. So how is the individual feeling? Have they recovered? and how do they feel about their involvement. So it's not an instant investigation, it's a 1-hour conversation more on a kind of emotional intelligence level. What do you feel about it? How could you have acted differently? And I think that's been an extremely powerful way of kind of personalising it for me, but also those who are involved in it. So I think there's a few things you can do, but it's a tough question, and it's not an end point, it's a journey.
Thanks very much, Ken. The next question is pointed at you, and I will start with you on it, if I might, Ken. What are the early ideas on process safety as a new theme, and how does that differ from asset integrity? So what are your first thoughts upon process safety as a new theme, and how does it differ from asset integrity?
Where's Alan Johnson when you need him? So that was one of the reasons why we actually set up Alan to go and do some work on this, because I think there are many different ideas. We recently had the professor who was involved in the follow-up to the Macondo talking with us in our office, and he was around Aberdeen for a few weeks, and we asked him this very question about what's your thoughts on how to kick something off at an industry level. Interestingly, he said you should choose a couple of metrics that you can actually measure and get it out there and get it measured consistently. So that was a bit of a surprise. So he was talking about ineffective barriers as an example, or some of our maintenance metrics, which are very close to asset integrity. So I think one of our challenges will be how to not have an overlap with asset integrity. But there are many other indicators, alarm count in the control room, which we don't traditionally measure under AI. There's a number of things that we can do. It's very early days. Personal thoughts are we will want to choose something that's very visible, demonstrable, like the hydrocarbon leak reduction. And it may well be that process safety and asset integrity get merged into one group in the end. But it's early days. It's something we're going to discuss during our planning day. So we have taken some input. Alan's working on it, and we'll be sure to engage the broad industry in getting your thoughts and ideas on how we can take this forward in a joined-up way.
Thanks very much, Ken. Les, have you got any thoughts on that one?
Really just to reflect that we've had success with using an existing KPI. We have a KPI for hydrocarbon release reduction that sits as part of the 3 industry KPIs, so safety critical maintenance backlog and verification non-compliance. Actually looking at those might help us understand where we should be focusing on process safety, at least as a start, and then perhaps moving beyond that. But we have KPIs, we have some targets. Liquidating maintenance backlog would probably be a reasonably good start, I suspect. Thanks.
Has anybody who's got and want to come in on that? I'll move on to the next question, okay? Right, this is on the question of the human resource, really. There's 2 of them, I'll read them both out. They're similar questions. We keep hearing about skill shortages. What impact does that have on safety? And the second one, with the escalating demands, complexity, activity workload, global competition for further resource, and the resource pool and tension on experience, how will the industry collaborate to ensure that experience dilution doesn't have a negative consequence on HSE performance? So 2 questions there about the tensions that are in the industry at the moment on the resource pool and its potential impact on safety, and what can we do about it, maybe in a collaborative sense. Martin, you talked a lot about the recruitment challenges that you'd faced. Would you like to start with your reflections on that one?
Yes, I certainly can. I think we have a challenge, as I mentioned as well, a big challenge. It's a lot of new people that we bring into the organization, and also Aberdeen is a very mobile market, so there's a lot of people moving between companies. And though we have the same driver as an industry, we do go around doing things differently in each organization coming through. So I think we have a big challenge that we really need to be focused on the onboarding of people and bringing people into the company culture and the standards, and keeping a very strong focus on that. And also, as we probably will see in the future, that we start to potentially transfer people from other industries into our industry. We need to be very aware of what are the skills that they bring with them, what is the mindset that they bring from other industries compared to where we are as an oil industry. So I think it takes a lot of focus, and I know there was some discussions at the Skills Summit that Oil and Gas UK hosted very recently, also about how do we group up as an industry to face this big challenge. And I think a continuation of that conversation could be what is it that we can do on the safety front.
Thanks very much. It was also interesting that one of the key observations, both from the data and from that summit, was that where we really have an issue in this industry is not really attracting people into it. It's the 10-year to 15-year experienced man or woman. That's really where we have the issue. So Ken, your thoughts? Resource scarcity. What are the impacts to safety, and what might we do collaboratively to address them?
Well, it's certainly a challenge. It's not something interesting that's been a major focus in the step change leadership team, and maybe that's a remiss, but we see that sitting in other parts of the industry initiatives, so it's not something we've majored on. But I do think we can significantly contribute. So I do know that in a country where employment's a challenge, and Europe where it's a bigger challenge, there are plenty of people in a European environment who could support our business. And there are a number of companies who are very active in conversion courses and bringing them into the industry. So I think that's certainly something that needs to be accelerated. And I talk more from my day job than I do from a step change role in that. In terms of step change, what I think we can do is to simplify the agenda. And I've talked many times in the leadership team about this, that many of the places I've worked in the past, it's been one dominant oil company who pervades the culture and the systems we use. One of the challenges and opportunities we have here in this basin is that we've got many sophisticated organizations and many different systems and processes for doing the same thing. If we could simplify that significantly, then we'd make the onboarding of people a much easier task. So if you look at things like MIST, if you look at the safety reps training that we've now put in place, if you look at joint management, we shouldn't be having 15 or 20 of those. We should have one, which would release resources to actually get on and do some work. So I think for me, there's a big collaboration story behind that as well, that if we can work together more effectively and not have many different systems for doing the same thing, then we can free up resources for executing the work. So two things for me: get people in from other industries and make sure that we transfer them appropriately. And secondly, let's collaborate more to simplify the agenda and get on and do the work.
Very good. Thanks so much. Willie, your thoughts on this? You see a resource problem?
I don't know. New apprenticeship schemes, keeping those going. I think maybe the asset integrity work group should also include the workforce that we've got just now. I don't know. It's up to these guys to start hiring in people, training them up. So.
Thanks so much. Les?
I guess that the opportunity is that actually an incoming workforce looks at things with a fresh set of eyes, and we need to understand how to get them offshore into our work sites and actually into our offices in a meaningful way. They are observers, and they'll see things that we've stopped seeing 5-10 years previously. And therefore, from a safety performance, there could be a huge, huge opportunity there. But BOSIT and MIST sit at the core. We have to make sure that those courses actually are achievable, but also set the bar high enough that you understand the expectations of working in this basin. Perhaps the challenge more so in terms of actually bringing people in is managing the people that are coming out. That knowledge resource that we have, that corporate knowledge, and how do we maintain those that are in our in 50s, 60s and dropping off let's say their working life, and so we don't lose that corporate culture, that corporate knowledge of safety performance. And that's actually perhaps a bigger challenge for us than just bringing new people in. And also, too many rules, too many variances. As Ken said, we have golden rules, life-saving rules, this version of rules, that version of rules. It's really confusing. The top pockets on boiler suits get bigger every year as we introduce a new card for everybody to comply with. Simplification, standardization, harmonization might be easier.
Thanks very much, Les. Now, this is a different one, and I'm going to start with you on it. Step change visibility offshore is the heading. Has anyone done a physical survey offshore on step change material? Then there are sort of 4 indications here of what you might find. Notice board, shelf, drawer, bin. You get the question. Les, has one been done, and what do you think its results would be? I'll come to Willie next, and I'll go on along to Martin and Ken for their reflections.
I think it would be all 4 of those, and unfortunately, some days of the week, I think bin would be the biggest one. But I'm not sure that's just the whole truth. Step change is visible offshore, or at least it's felt offshore in some forms, but we have a lot more to do. Without naming names, I was actually at a company's at a major step change member company about 3-4 weeks ago and had a look at their step change notice board. 90% of the data on it was out of date. And the most important piece of news on it was there's a large flat to rent in the centre of Aberdeen. So there's a lot more we need to do as a step change support team in actually enabling that. It's one of the things that we see the support team is there to do. Make sure that comms is an integral part of being a member of Step Change. And actually we need the company focal points to do that. The company focal point network was set up to actually drive that comms into organisations. That has stalled somewhat of late, and we need to reinvigorate that to make sure that it isn't in the bin, it's actually on notice boards and being used.
Willie, you were very eloquent in your message that not enough people offshore know about step change. What are your thoughts upon this question?
Yeah, well, me and Les have been actually discussing this design of a new notice board to put offshore, and lots of ideas of how to keep the guys, interested in it. Although the bikini-clad models handing out the flyers, Les kind of disapproved of that. So, but yeah, so we've got new notice boards, a new way forward. We've just got to make sure that everyone pushes the message forward. So.
Okay, thanks. Martin.
Yeah, I guess we heard. Sorry, I guess we heard Willie loud and clear. So I think that speaks for itself. So even if we have notice boards, they're not being used. And we have I think we have a challenge with the balance as well, because we all have our own initiatives and campaigns and drivers, etc. And there's also, we need to be very focused on the communication. We have a tendency to just communicate and put more and more material out there, but is it really fit for purpose? Is it efficient, and is it being used? So I don't think a new folder, new notice boards, etc. necessarily is the right thing, just adding on. I think we need to look at and be more crisp about what we already have now. I think in some areas step change is very visible. So I mentioned the workforce pilot we have just run. But I think also when things like happen, like the helicopter incidents we had, etc., there the work groups really step in and supports and supplies quite a lot of information that flows out into the organization. However, it might not be visible that it actually comes from the work groups from Step Change.
Okay, thanks. Ken, for a reflection on that?
Yeah, I may be biased as a co-chair of Step Change and Safety, but I think the impact of Step Change is felt offshore, but it may not be labelled as such. And that was a bit what Willie was saying earlier. It's got two sides. It's maybe a good thing because people just go on and do the stuff, but it's got a bad thing in terms of not engaging broadly enough. So I think we've got an enormous challenge in communication. And I don't mean we, us sitting on this table, or we Step Change leadership team. I mean we in this room and the other rooms. I think we've got an enormous opportunity to drive consistency and collaboration, which means more efficiency, more effective implementation of some of the things we're doing around safety. But if we don't grasp it, we don't grasp it. So I think it's really in our hands to say, this is something we want to do and actively work it. I know in my own organisation, we're trying very hard to do this. It's a big organisation with a lot of global initiatives, but trying to find a way of making them basin-specific and relevant for the folk here is really what we're trying to do. And I need all of your help. We need all of your help to make that happen. So I think, if you did the survey, you'd probably find, maybe not even in the bin, people wouldn't know the connection to it. So we've got a lot more to do in that, but that's a collective ownership in action.
Thanks, Ken. Well, sorry, chaps, I've failed. I'm going to ask you one last question. There are three, and the questioners will know that we haven't got time, I'm afraid, to answer, so we'll get those onto the website. Just one last quick one, and if we could be quite brief in our responses on this. Willie, it was directed at you. I'm going to go to Ken first, though, and then to you. What is the biggest value of using the Step Change workforce engagement tool? What's the biggest value of using the Step Change and Safety workforce engagement tool? Ken, you want to start?
Hearing what your people have got to say.
Thanks very much. Willie?
Yeah, I'll just have to echo what Ken's saying. This is what the tool's designed for, so let's test it and see.
Thank you very much indeed. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we have really run out of time, and I think we've got to close it there. Would you please join with me in thanking all of our speakers and Les on the panel there for really, I hope you'll agree with me, quite an inspiring series of talks and a fascinating response there in the panel. Could you please join in thanking them in the usual way?